Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing our Guan Yu's Last Dance lore series with episode 3, titled Cao Cao's Response. So in our previous episode, we looked at Guan Yu's forces and deployment at the onset of the campaign, and in this episode, we'll do the same for Cao Cao's forces. First off, by July of 219, the Hanzhong campaign was already over, as Cao Cao had already completed his costly retreat to Chang'an by May of the same year. Yet, due to the heavy losses, Cao Cao would stay in Chang'an until October, as his troops would need time to replenish their strength. Therefore, at the onset of Guan Yu's campaign, the only force defending the Jin province for Cao Cao was Cao Ren, who held the title of General who conquered the south at this moment. Now, even though you might recall that Cao Ren had been stationed here since Cao Cao's retreat from the Battle of Chibi in the year 208, and his battles against Zhou Yu over the non-commandery, Cao Ren has actually been moved around quite a lot, and only recently returned to the Jin province. As you might also recall, Cao Ren was defending the Tong Gates during Ma Chao's rebellion in the year 211. Then in 212, when rebellions broke out in the Ji province, Cao Ren was sent there to quell the minor insurrection. Finally, from 216 and 217, Cao Ren accompanied Cao Cao south in campaigns against Sun Quan in the Yang province, and only in 218, when Cao Cao was headed west with the bulk of their forces for the Hanzhong campaign, was Cao Ren finally reassigned back to the Jin province to help facilitate labor conscription for the western campaign and to keep an eye out on Guan Yu. So in essence, Cao Ren has been around, as he was one of Cao Cao's most trusted generals and had always been sent to where he was needed the most. Yet Cao Ren, in his fervent support of his cousin Cao Cao, pushed way too hard with his draconian labor conscription policies, and soon sparked multiple insurrections, with the biggest one being Hou Yin in the city of Guan. Even though this rebellion was put down not long after, in January of 219, it still took Cao Ren 4 months of sieging to bring down the city, which probably caused a significant amount of casualties to his forces, which is an unknown quantity, as no historical records ever recorded Cao Ren's forces in the Jin province. Now, I can't imagine Cao Ren bringing a huge army with him to the Jin province, especially since his assignment coincided with Cao Cao's Hanzhong campaign, which required the mobilization of well over 100,000 troops. It is far more likely that Cao Ren had brought less than 10,000 men with him into the Jin province, and instead relied heavily on local garrisons that were already in place. And speaking of these local garrisons, the northern parts of the Jin province that Cao Cao held included the commandery of Nanyang and half of the Nan commandery. But after the defeat at Chibi, Cao Cao actually subdivided the Nanyang commandery and created a new commandery called Zhangling, with Xiangyang being the capital and administrative center for the entire province. And garrison here was General Lu Chang, who had been the administrator of Zhangling since its creation in 208. And since one army unit during this time period often amounted to roughly 4,000 men, and given the importance of Xiangyang, I estimate there were probably 2 army worth of garrison, or roughly 8,000 troops, under Lu Chang's command. This would also be in line with figures seen at other key holdings such as Hefei, where during the siege of 215, Zhang Dao had roughly 7,000 troops garrisoned at Hefei. Then add on Cao Ren's newly arrived troops, which is probably also no more than 2 armies worth. The total troop count in Xiangyang area, around Guan Yu's initial assault, probably amounted to 15,000. This also makes sense, as if Cao Ren's force had more, Guan Yu probably wouldn't be launching his attack with just 30,000 troops, especially since Cao Cao will certainly send more reinforcement down the line. And speaking of reinforcement, when news of Guan Yu's attack first reached Cao Cao immediately orders Xu Huang's forces to march to Guan, which was north of Xiangyang. Now, the reason why Xu Huang was not sent directly to the front lines was because Xu Huang had been in charge of the rear guard duties during their retreat out of Hanzhong, and had pretty much lost his entire force. And at this moment, after 2 months of rest and recruitment, Xu Huang's new force, made up of entirely fresh recruits, needed much more time to train before they were battle ready. So given the urgency of Guan Yu's attack, Cao Cao decided to send Xu Huang down first to an area close to Xiangyang to finish the trainings of his troops so they can be thrown into the battle at a moment's notice in the future. Then to the city of Xiangyang, Cao Cao sent words back to Ye for 7 armies to be pulled from the north to march to Xiangyang immediately. Now at first, Cao Cao wanted his son Cao Zhi to lead this army of roughly 30,000 troops, as each army is roughly 4,000 men. However, the night before the army was set to march out, Cao Zhi got blackout drunk, as he would often do, which made him late the next day. And this single event would lose him the battle for air with his brother Cao Pi, but that is a story for a future lore series. For the moment, the army waits for no one, and Yu Jin was quickly reassigned to lead this force as they marched to Xiangyang to assist Cao Ren. In addition to this force that was on its way, Man Chong, who was the administrator of the neighboring commandery of Runan, also pulled from his local garrison and arrived in Xiangyang first, but I can't imagine this force to be more than a few thousand men, as Man Chong probably had an army of probably 1 or 2 army worth of men under his command, and he probably needed to keep the bulk of that force back in Runan. So in the end, by August of 219, or just 1 month after Guan Yu launched his attack, Cao Ren probably had a total of 50,000 combat-ready troops in response, plus an unknown number of fresh recruits that were still being trained by Xu Huang. And these 50,000 troops were deployed with 10,000, which included Lu Chang's 8,000 garrison and Man Chong's 2,000 reinforcements, inside the city of Xiangyang itself. Then on the northern bank of the Han River, opposite of Xiangyang, Cao Ren probably had around 8,000 troops defending the city of Fan. And then roughly 10 leagues due north of Fan, on the open plains, Cao Ren ordered his general Pang De to join Yu Jin's army of 30,000 troops, as they would make camp there to prevent Guan Yu from setting up a full siege of the city of Fan. Now, if you look at this map here, you might be wondering, with Guan Yu launching his attack from the south, and with Xiangyang being his target, why is Cao Ren stationing the bulk of his forces around the northern city of Fan? Well, this has to do with the unique geography of Xiangyang, as it sits around a natural moat formed by the Han River. It is also on a high ground that goes from south to north, with Fan being its sister city to the north across the Han River. If any army attempted to take Xiangyang, they must first take Fan by sieging it from the flat, open plains in the north. As if you tried to siege Xiangyang from the south, you would first have to deal with the moat while fighting uphill the entire time. Then, whatever damage you can do to the city and its defenders, supplies and reinforcements will easily re-enter the city and resupply the city through the bridges and naval docks that connects it to Fan. So historically speaking, in order to take Xiangyang, no matter the dynasty, you must form a naval blockade of the Han River to cut off the connection between the two cities. Then you would siege down Fan first, and then try to starve out Xiangyang. And to put this task in reference, it would take the mighty Mongolian army 6 years, stocked with gunpowder weaponry and cannons, to pull off this plan. But Guan Yu didn't need to siege down Xiangyang. He just needed to make Cao Cao hurt and buy enough time for his brother Liu Bei to reorganize their forces in Hanzhong and launch a parallel attack on the Liang province and the Chang'an region, which is also another reason why Cao Cao ended up staying in Chang'an for so long after retreating out of Hanzhong, as he was preparing for a potential attack by Liu Bei. And with that, we now have a clear picture of the forces on both sides at the onset of this campaign, as we'll end our episode here. Next time, we'll look at Guan Yu's last shining moment, as he would single-handedly decimate more than half of Cao Ren's forces and put the fear throughout the Central Plains. So hopefully you all enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!